Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey everyone, Thinking Sideways podcast. As always, I'm Devin, joined by
Joe.
And Steve.
and Steve
And Steve.
and Steve
And Joe.
and Joe
And Devin.
and Devin.
Okay.
It's the trio. We're like the Scoobies.
As you can tell, we're already trying to pad this episode out.
It's going to be a quick one. I hope. I mean, every time we say it's going to be a quick one, it ends up being actually like much longer than we think it's going to be. So.
Well,
Yeah.
it's because you guys ramble on endlessly.
Listen, sorry everyone.
Okay, that's
Joe won't stop talking again.
yeah.
Shocking. So we're going to talk a little bit about the monster with 21 faces. It's got a bunch of different like AKAs, but we're just going to call it the monster with 21 faces.
Yeah.
Cool?
Cool.
Works for
everyone?
me.
Cool. So our mystery starts mysteriously, okay, but we are going to do a little background first. Have you guys ever had Pocky?
You know, I never have. I mean,
I've seen it.
You?
I've seen
I've seen it.
It's
I've
one
never
of my
had it.
favorite snacks. Actually, at work, sometimes people are like, "Hey, we're gonna get Pocky," and I'm like, "For me?" And they're like, "No, to sell." And I'm like, "Ah."
Oh.
But I want to eat it all. That's the worst. So it's for those of you who don't know what Pocky is, Google it. Probably is the best way. But it's these like kind of biscuit sticks that are dipped in chocolate. Is the best way I can describe them.
Sometimes they have sprinkles and other little silly things
Yeah,
on
or they're
them.
dipped in like creamy
Caramely
Something or
caramel
things.
or strawberry flavors or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a confection.
Yes.
Basically.
Made in what country?
Yeah, Japan. Made in
Okay.
Japan. And the company that makes it is called Izakai Glico. Glico is how I would say that word, right? My Japanese is not on point, I will be honest with you, so I'm going to be mispronouncing a lot of these words. I apologize in advance. And I can't remember how we decided we were going to pronounce this. Is Morinaga?
Morinaga?
Morinaga.
Morinaga.
Morinaga
Works,
is another large confectionery producer in Japan. And I couldn't tell if they actually export to America or not. A lot of their stuff was labeled in English, but I couldn't.
I would imagine if they're putting it in English, they're probably selling it in this country.
Maybe.
You would think so,
But
yeah.
I can't totally, so I couldn't tell.
I mean, I've been to there's huge Asian market stores, supermarkets here in our city, and I
Yeah.
see a lot of this stuff there. So I've got to imagine that it's probably labeled in both for export for those kind of situations.
Sure.
Yeah, so anyway.
And as a other side note, the monster with 21 faces has never been identified. So for all we know, it could just be one person.
Or
but
a bunch of people.
I'm going to go ahead and just for the purposes of this story, I'm going to assume that it was more than one person and use plural pronouns. Just to like throw that out.
Okay.
For everyone
Right.
to
Yep.
know.
Nope. That makes sense.
Okay. So here we go. Mysterious start. Everyone
Yeah,
ready?
okay. Let's
All
hear
right.
it.
March 18th, 1984 at 9 a.m., two masked men, one armed with a pistol, the other armed with a rifle, enter Katsun... How do you say that? How would you say
Katsuhisa.
No, I think it's
Katsuhisa?
Katsuhisa.
that?
Katsuhisa, yeah, that sounds good.
Izakai's
Katsuhisa
home.
Izakai, yeah.
They tied Izakai's wife and daughter up, believing the two men were just like regular robbers. Izakai's wife tried to negotiate them for her freedom and her daughter's freedom in exchange for money, but they said, no, that's not what we want. They cut the telephone lines and stormed into the bathroom where Izakai and his other two children were hiding. The two men abducted Izakai only and held him captive in a warehouse. And I know I didn't mention this before, but Izakai is of Izakai Glico fame. He is the president of Izakai Glico.
Or at least
He's
he was.
the
He was
man.
then, anyway.
At least he was then. Yeah, he's the dude. He's the owner, the CEO, the
Yeah.
grand poobah,
The
if
man.
you will.
The candy man.
The
Yeah.
Grand Poobah.
He is the
Yeah.
candy man.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next morning, the director of Glico was contacted, and the people who contacted him, presumably the kidnappers, demanded a ransom of 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms. That's just over 220 pounds for our American listeners of gold bullion. And let's just go ahead and say,
I think that's gold bullion. Yeah.
not bullion.
Yeah, bullion is
Yeah,
that
you can't
soup.
make soup out of it.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and say that, like, there are a lot of places around the internet that say it was 10 pounds, or no.
10 kilograms?
Kilograms. But Wikipedia says it was 100. And as we all know, Wikipedia is
Always
obviously the
right.
Yeah,
authority.
they're never
So
wrong.
we're just going to
Yeah.
say it was 100.
Well, what the hell? It doesn't matter.
Obviously, the director could not act immediately because that's a whole mess of everything.
Yes.
He couldn't just, like, in a day produce all those things. So it took him a couple days.
I sure would like to have 100 kilos of gold.
Just, like, hanging out.
I know.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be pretty awesome, yeah.
It's the foundation of my house. Make sure my house won't blow away.
Oh, man. I
Smart
should.
move.
Where do you live again?
Some other place.
Okay. So, because it took the director so long, 3 days later, on the 21st of March, Izukai actually escaped. And actually, it turns out that perhaps he could have escaped the whole time because he was literally just sitting in a warehouse. Like, he wasn't tied up. He wasn't guarded. He wasn't locked up by any records that anybody can kind of...
These guys are really terrible at hostage taking.
Well,
or
apparently they're
holding.
really great at hostage holding because it took him 3 days to figure out that he wasn't being guarded.
That's really weird.
Yeah, I've got to admit, that's really weird.
Super weird.
Yeah.
We're
But
going to put
anyway.
you in this room. Do not try the door handle. I know it says exit, but don't touch that handle.
Well, I think most reasonable human beings, upon being kidnapped, right, and threatened with guns and stuff,
They're probably
and
gonna
then
be
like
afraid to make a
thrown
move.
into a warehouse, are just going to assume that they're locked or assume that somebody's standing on the other side of the door. And when 3 days
And
later,
you probably don't want to make your captors angry
right?
with you.
Yeah, of course. Well, he did actually.
Well,
as
I
it
guess
turns
I'm
out.
just nosy.
You know,
I would be like, I wonder
if
if it's open.
if I had been him though, I wouldn't have come back and said, yeah, they just left me unguarded. I would have said, yeah, I was tied up and everything, or I was handcuffed. And
I made a
picked-
miraculous
And I found a pin lying on the floor, and I
Yeah.
picked my cuffs, even though they were
Yeah.
behind my back. But it took me a while, and then I had to clobber a guard, and I had to snatch a weapon from another one and hold him at bay while I made a break for it.
Hey, you remember how we were talking about these episodes being really long? Yeah.
I'm just saying, he should have made up a better story. You get kidnapped and you escape. You want to come up with a better story than that.
Fair.
I'm awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So actually, the kidnappers were not pleased. So a couple days later, on April 10th of the same year, 3 vehicles were set on fire at one of Glico's test facilities. And shortly after, on the 16th, so 6 days later, there was a plastic tub, or I guess kind of bucket.
A container.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Container full of hydrochloric acid that was accompanied by a threatening note, quote unquote, was attached to it. Were left somewhere. It's not totally
Left at
clear.
One of their
facilities.
locations.
It was found near a Glico test facility.
I want to know, what is a test facility for a candy manufacturer?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to
I can think of a munitions company. They have a test facility where it's concrete walls so nothing blows up, but it's candy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you got to test all the products. You got to make sure that it's not toxic. You got to make sure that like the sugar contents are
Yeah,
right. You have to
right.
like
Okay.
taste test it.
I would imagine they probably have, it's like any testing, anything. They've got these laboratories that are filled with kids that are like in cages. And they're feeding them this stuff. They're feeding them this stuff like, massive quantities nonstop, for years.
See how
just
hyper
to-
they get?
Yeah, just to see what it does to them.
Oh, I thought it was like Willy Wonka's test facility.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Moving on. So anyway, after that, what happened?
On May 10th, so like, a
month.
little less than a month later, Glico began receiving letters from the monster with 21 faces. And, because it's Japanese and it's kanji, it's the monster with 21 faces is sometimes translated as the mystery man with 21 faces or the phantom with 21 faces.
Well, and that name, they didn't just make that up. Isn't it from a comic or some
No,
series of books?
It's from a fiction novel.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way I would compare it is that like if somebody in America had picked a villain from a Stephen King novel and decided to take that, it wasn't like some huge Japanese mythology that everybody
It would be
knew.
like saying, and this letter is signed by the Tommy Knockers.
Yeah, I don't know who the Tommy Knockers are.
Signed
so
by
yeah.
Pokemon.
Yeah, something like that.
Tommy
yeah.
Knockers are a Stephen King novel about a group of really creepy aliens.
See, apparently that works out great.
They're green. They're mean.
Sure.
They have a spaceship.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, I
So-
don't think I read that one.
You totally read that one.
I don't think I did.
We've talked about the Tommy knockers because you and I. Okay, we're way off topic. Keep going, please, Devin. I'm sorry.
So in these letters, the monster with 21 faces claimed to have laced certain Glico products with potassium cyanide.
That's not good.
It's not great. Just like for the general knowledge of everybody listening, in case you don't know, cyanide, both potassium and sodium cyanide, essentially render your body unable to use the oxygen in your blood.
That would be unpleasant.
It kills you pretty quick.
You suffocate quite quickly.
Yeah, and it's tasteless and odorless and dissolves just like sugar does. So Glico, being at least a mildly decent company, pull literally all of their product off of the shelves. This resulted in a $21 million or yen, I don't know, really, loss and a layoff of about 450 workers.
Right, because they lost so much money they couldn't afford to pay their people to keep working. Yeah, and they were all part-time people, I think it said.
Yeah, they were all part-time people. I don't know. I mean, it does specify part-time people. I don't think that makes it any less bad.
Oh, no, it's still
they
a lot
probably
of
got
people at
hired
work.
back. I mean, essentially, when you pull your products off the shelves, you're not going to immediately restock them. Probably, you're going to suspend production for a little bit until you figure out what's going on. And so they probably got hired back.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The monster with 21 faces at about the same time wrote a letter threatening to say that they had more of that tampered product. They had purchased a bunch, or however procured a bunch of the tampered with products, and that they were going to place it back on the shelves once Glico restocked the shelves. They also sent a letter to the media. The letters to the media were handwritten and in a very distinct Osaka dialect, which was different than all of the letters that Glico had been receiving. They were all typewritten on a typewriter. Here's some of the examples of what were on the letters.
Yeah, they're really kind.
They're really beautiful. Dear dumb police officers, don't tell a lie. All crimes begin with a lie, as we say in Japan. Don't you know that? Other letters were written to police stations that kind of relayed similar messages. This one that is often quoted says, "Why don't you keep it to yourself? You seem to be at a loss. So why not let us help you? We'll give you a clue. We entered the factory by the front gate. The typewriter we used was a pan writer. The plastic container we used was a piece of street garbage. Monster with 21 faces."
Okay.
Basically taunting.
Oh, yeah.
Here's how we did part of it. Don't worry about finding that out. Now try and find us. Ha ha!
Yeah. So and it might have been more than taunting. It might have, it could be somebody who actually is having a little fun with them because they're so close to. They're actually working for the company, whatever. They're basically telling them the truth, not just taunting them, but actually giving them big old clues.
Yeah, as it turns out, the monster eventually got bored with their extortion of Glico because they weren't getting anything. Or
they got something.
Or maybe they got
That was kind of
something.
where I was going to go, but keep going.
Yeah, but so on June 26th of the same year, so like within the span of just a couple months, they released a media statement that said, "We forgive Glico!" ! And turned their attentions elsewhere. And as a side note, the deeper we, at this point, really, I mean, we've read a couple of the letters, we're kind of getting the sense of the monster with 21 faces. The deeper we get into this story, the less believable it becomes. I was kind of like discussing the story with some people, and they were like, wow, the monster with 21 faces sounds like it's a 5-year-old. Like, some of the letters that are written to the police, especially as we continue on, sound like it's like a 5-year-old or, like a teenager that's like, oh, I see this in the movies. It will be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is they say, we forgive Glico. That to me indicates that Glico got some letters that they didn't spill the beans on and paid out saying, stop screwing with us.
Yeah, it's possible.
Stop messing with us and we'll pay you money.
That's possible. I suspect that Izukai Glico, Izukai, the president of the company, was probably behind this whole thing. So he staged this kidnapping, and he arranged for all the notes, everything, because this gave him a great way. After you got the forgiveness letter, then he can go harass all of his competitors and cost them huge amounts of money, and also extort lots of money from them.
Fair.
Yeah.
So I also want to go ahead and mention another thing that happened. quickly before we move on. A surveillance video caught a man wearing a Giants baseball cap.
Giants, the baseball team, not a giant baseball cap.
No, Giants as in the
They're
baseball
wearing-
team from America.
Yes.
Okay.
He was wearing that, and they caught him placing Glico candies onto shelves of a supermarket.
And they
just
call
as
him
that letter had threatened to do.
Well, they call him the videotape man, right?
They do. Again, it's this whole, like, the whole story just sounds like a bad anime or something, right? It's like, as we go into this more, right, the suspects are the videotape man, the fox-eyed man.
Yu-Gi-Oh! I saw the videotape man down the street.
Yeah.
Let's go get him.
It does a little bit sound that way.
Dude, the videotape menu. The first thing I thought of is I thought about those times when you go to the store and you pick up something. It's like, oh, I guess I'll indulge myself, a bag of candy or whatever. And then later on, you think, maybe not. You go back and you put it back on the shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, he might not have, it could have just been that.
Well, it was
that
my
guy.
understanding that he was putting, like, a fair amount back on. It wasn't,
really?
like, just a bag or two that it, like, he
He's
had a
pulling it
bag
out of
and
his
it-
pocket, not out of his basket.
I didn't see the video. Myself.
haven't seen the video
I just saw
either.
a still from the video.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the thing. We only see stills.
Yeah, and I guess the footage was released at one point, but again, this is, the 80s, so it's not like we have the internet to, like, circulate.
Yeah, it's not
this,
easy
make
to
it viral.
access anymore.
Yeah. So in October of 1984, the same year, the media of Osaka received a letter addressed to the moms of the nation, which was, of course, from the monster with 21 faces. This time, it claimed to have laced 20 packages of, oh my gosh, I've forgotten how to say
Morinaga?
this. Yeah,
Morinaga.
Morinaga chocolates with sodium cyanide instead of,
Potassium
cyanide. They do the same thing.
Okay.
They're just as bad.
They're both awful.
Yeah.
After receiving this letter, the police searched stores in cities of Tokyo.
Of Tokyo?
All
or
over
From
Japan,
Tokyo
actually.
From
to kind
Tokyo
of
to all over the place.
yeah,
Okay.
in that kind of in the Osaka area.
That western Japan area, basically.
Well, and Japan is like 5 or 6 different islands, but
Right.
yeah.
On that, yeah. Anyway.
and they found over a dozen of lethal packages of cocoa balls and angel pies before anyone was poisoned. And these packages had actually been like relabeled, like stickers had been put on them to say like danger, contains toxins or something similar.
Which is really, you're not trying to hide what you're doing at that point.
No, not
But
at all.
if we think about things that people have done, remember, was it the aspirin scare?
That was Tylenol. That's
Tylenol scare, they were saying they injected it into the mix, and so you couldn't tell which ones. But this is very open and in your face, whereas the Tylenol scare was very insidious because you did not know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And that was
actually the Tylenol thing was just somebody trying to murder his wife. But he went back and put some on the shelves in the store just to
Right,
cover himself.
I know,
Yeah,
but I'm just saying it's like you
but,
can't
but yeah,
tell.
you can't tell. I know. It's like, and I think, if this had continued, they might have eventually started putting them on the shelves without putting labels on them.
Well, and that was my impression of like the Pocky, for instance, was that it had been part of the mix. They didn't, say, oh, we tampered with 20 of these boxes. It was just kind of like a bunch of your stuff is bad. So they actually continued to search for them, and more tampered confections were found in February of 1985, the year later, which meant that they found 21 of these products.
So in about a 4 or 5 month period.
Over,
Okay.
yeah. Which, again, 21 monster with 21 face. Whatever, it's fine.
No, I see the correlation there.
Yeah.
Wink,
So,
wink. That's very sneaky.
Somehow, and it's really not important how, because why would it be important how? A deal was made with the monster with 21 faces with a certain other confectionery producer. And basically, the monster with 21 faces would stop harassing them for 500 million yen. And the
500
arrangement...
million or 50 million?
Oh, I'm sorry, 50 million.
Okay.
Adding zeros all over the place.
Oh.
It's fine. That's why the
Rounding
show is
error.
doing so well.
It's math.
I keep adding zeros to our numbers. It's fine. So the arrangement was made that an employee of this company would toss the ransom money, like in a briefcase or whatever, huge bag that would contain 50 million yen. I actually don't know how much that would weigh or how big it would be.
Yeah, you'd have to put it in like 50,000 yen notes.
Yeah,
Well, the yen notes kind of come in big denominations.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it was like a suitcase or something. So he would throw it onto a local train heading towards Kyoto when a white flag was displayed from a certain location. It's again, it sounds kind of like a teenager being like, "Oh, I see this in the movies." Yeah. So a police investigator that was disguised as an employee of this company was following the drop instructions instead of actually sending an actual employee. Well, makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, it does sound just like it's a movie, but fine, whatever. And he was following the instructions. And he spotted a suspicious man who he said was observing him when he was riding the train to the drop spot. The man was described as a large, well-built man wearing sunglasses with his hair cut short and permed and, quote, eyes like those of a fox, unquote.
The fox-eyed man. How was he able to see his eyes if the guy was wearing sunglasses?
Listen, it's the how is not important.
Oh, okay.
With so much of this story, the how is just not important.
How was he able to tell this guy was observing him if he had sunglasses
Right,
on?
exactly. I mean, it comes back to a little bit like earlier, right, where we say, well, a deal was struck, but like nobody had an address for the monster with 21 faces.
No.
It's not like they could be like corresponding via letters. And at this point, you couldn't do encrypted email, so it wasn't like an anonymous email address or like an anonymous phone number, I assume. Anyways, as I said, the how is not important.
Okay.
So this is the fox-eyed man. It's the videotaped man and the fox-eyed man are the two people who are kind of referred to as suspects.
Yeah, these are our two main characters we know of. Okay.
Yeah, the fox-eyed man on the train too. Now, isn't it true that he was sitting there staring at this cop the whole way, which is, by the way, not good tradecraft. And then they get to Kyoto, I think. Then they both get off at the station, and then the policeman eventually gets on the train going back to Osaka or wherever they were from. And this guy gets on the train with him. I mean, why at that point didn't the policeman arrest him?
Well, he was still undercover, I guess. But there was another investigator. He had somehow communicated with the rest of his team, and he said, hey, there's this dude who's the fox-eyed man, and he's following me. So other investigators were assigned to follow the fox-eyed man, and he evaded them because, of course, he did.
Yeah, it's this weird skullduggery. Oh, there's a guy who is wearing sunglasses and staring at me. I've been on the train and I've been looking at somebody going, why is that guy staring at me? And then half an hour later, I realized that guy's actually asleep.
Yeah.
He's just sitting there, spacing out, not paying attention, and then goes, oh, man, I missed my stop. Oh,
Yeah.
I gotta go back 2 stops. Oh, man.
Yeah. So
This is simplifying the heck out of this, but
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
So police actually they lost him that first time, right? But they got a second chance at the fox-eyed man on November 14th of 1985. Investigators were on their way to make a drop of more ransom money. Again, the how is just not important. When they saw the fox-eyed man wearing a golf cap and dark glasses.
Always the dark glasses.
I'm not totally sure what a golf cap is.
Isn't that like what Tiger Woods wears? I don't know.
That's a baseball cap.
That's a baseball
isn't it?
cap.
Does he wear a baseball cap?
A golf cap to me
is kind of like one of those sports caps, like that's got the beret with the little bill.
Yeah,
little stubby bill in
that's
front.
basically to me
That's
what a
I
golf
think
cap
that's what I'm
is. It's
thinking.
like
In
what
my
you'd see on
mind,
an
too.
Irish golf course.
In my mind, that's true too.
Okay.
So there was a cash delivery van that the investigators were tailing that continued to head towards the drop point where they were meant to drop the money inside a can under a piece of cloth. So again, like the spatial reasoning of this is not super clear in my mind, but fine, whatever. When the delivery van reached the drop point, there was a white cloth sitting on the ground, but no can. As a result, the investigative team was, of course, ordered to withdraw.
They aborted the whole thing.
Yeah, they did, and they thought, oh, well, it's clearly just the fox-eyed man trying to evaluate the police response.
Maybe.
He's watching us.
He was watching us. Well, actually, as it turns out, like an hour before this botched drop, a local patrol car had spotted a station wagon that had its engine running and its headlights off, and it was sitting like 50 meters away from a white cloth that was suspended from a fence.
Yeah.
So, being a responsible officer of the law, officer of the law,
Ossifer Brown.
Yeah. Officer of the law, he drove up to the station wagon and flash flashlight in there, and he revealed a quote thin-cheeked man in his 40s wearing a golf cap over his eyes, and more telling, a wireless receiver with headphones.
Ooh, was he fox-eyed?
Yeah, I guess so. Surprised by the policeman, the driver sped off with the police car following in pursuit until the station wagon lost him.
I have never seen a high-speed chase
With a station
wagon.
Yeah, I know, right? Only in Japan.
Grandpa in his Woody station wagon outran the police.
Yeah, it's the paddy wagon, right?
You do it like they do it in the movies. You know, you have accomplices in other cars who roll out of the way and block the cop, and you get away. Yeah.
So the station wagon, it turns out, was later found abandoned, and it was discovered that it had been stolen earlier in that night. Inside the car was a radio transceiver that had apparently been eavesdropping on radio communications between police officers from 6 different prefectures, including Osaka, Kyoto, and Kobe, which were the prefectures where
for the drop point.
Drop point. And to be clear, a prefecture, not everybody knows. I had to actually
It's a prefect is basically kind of a county is an easy way to think of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So why would they leave their transceiver in the car?
Well, you're running, right? I mean, you go quickly.
Yeah, I mean you're leaving everything behind. So I just got to get out of here.
Well, I suppose, but he shook his tail.
Yeah.
Fox-eyed man got away again.
Damn it.
Once again.
That
rascal.
I cannot emphasize enough how improbable all of this is.
Yeah, right.
And we're about to get a little more improbable.
Yeah.
So in August of 1985, the police superintendent of Shiga Prefecture, is that how you would say that?
I don't know.
Yeah, the Shiga prefect, yeah.
Yeah, and the only name he was given was Yamamoto. And he committed suicide by setting himself on fire.
Not the way I would do it.
Not the way I would do it.
No, that's a bad way to go.
Yeah, and it was speculated. I'm pretty sure it was speculation. I don't think he left a note or told anybody.
I think you're right.
My impression is that it was speculated that it was because he was unable to solve the mystery of who the monster with 21 faces was.
That's kind of like taking your job a little too seriously.
A little too seriously.
But that's actually very that's very indicative of Japanese culture.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is personal. It is my fault that I can't solve this. And in a way, in Japanese culture, it's your fault that some of these things happen. Like, you take on a certain level of responsibility and guilt, for lack of a better term, for why these things are going on. That's a bit of the way their culture works. So I can see it. I don't understand it.
No, I don't either.
But I know that that's how some of that works.
Yeah, so just a couple days after Yamamoto's suicide, the monster with 21 faces sent what would end up being the final message to the media. They sent it to the media. And I'm going to read it, and I super apologize if I end up sounding like a bad anime character.
do you want
all right,
me to read
Sailor
it?
Moon,
No.
let's have it.
I'll read it. Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture police died. How stupid of him. We've got no friends or secret hidings in Shiga. It's Yoshito or Shigita.
Yoshino
or Shikita? Yeah.
It's Yoshino or Shikita who should have died. What have they been doing for as long as 1 year and 5 months? Don't let bad guys like us get away with it. There are many more fools who want to copy us. No career Yamamoto died like a man. So we decide to give our condolences. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food-making companies, it's not us, but somebody copying us. We are bad guys. That means that we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. Monster with 21 faces. Have you guys watched Axe Cop ever?
Axe Cop? No.
That just sounds like Axe Cop to me.
That totally is Axe Cop.
And for reference, Axe Cop is written by a 5-year-old.
Joe,
I've
you
heard
know who
about
Axe Cop is.
Yeah, no, I've heard about five. Now is that an animated thing or is that?
It's kind of a faux comic series. Yeah,
it's not a comic strip though, or it's like a comic book, or
it's a faux. It's done on the internet only, I believe, and it's totally bogus. It's totally.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes.
We looked at some of the stuff, and it's like this guy's kid is like, or his little brother or
It's his
something
little
like
brother,
that.
yeah.
That's hilarious. So Axe Cop.
But that's exactly what that sounds like to me.
Yeah.
It's like a 5-year-old writing a letter from bad guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it does. And I know that we're done with the story at this point, right?
Pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's pretty much it.
So here's my one thing about this story that really bothers me is I've done some reading on the Japanese police and their justice system. And the stories that I've read focus on Tokyo, but I mean this is kind of deals with the entire system as a whole. They always had, up until about the turn of this century, they had an amazing record for solving crimes. Do you know why they had an amazing record for solving crimes?
Why?
Because they cherry-picked what they were going to solve. In other words, if you came up and said, oh my God, my brother disappeared. Oh, well, your brother's probably a drug user, so we don't care. And then my brother was found dead in an alley 2 days later. Well, your brother was obviously a drug user, so we don't have to investigate that. He overdosed. It's his fault. Like they have this weird mentality of if it's not an obvious answer, then we're not going to investigate it. Therefore, our numbers look really good. They also have this weird thing where they will only take on cases where they think they can get the culprit, and their entire judicial system in terms of prosecution at that time hinges upon a confession. So if I get somebody in the box, as they would say, so I get them in the room to confess, to interrogate them, they will interrogate somebody until they finally confess. And if somebody doesn't confess, they don't get it. There's been cases where people are like, I'm not going to confess to this crime. I didn't do the crime. And they don't understand it because it's sort of that cultural thing. Like, you're actually partially responsible even if you're not involved. So your brother, let's say, is a drug user. Well, that's actually kind of your fault. So you should kind of take some culpability for that. So they have this weird cultural bias where they will only go after certain things. And because of that, I'm not going to say that they're inept, but they're very slow-footed. And they're not quick on the draw. They're not creative in how they'll look at problems. So I know that what they probably did, if this is in my mind, like let's say Glico, that's the first one, right? Izakaya?
Yeah.
They probably looked at him and they put him in the box and they said, okay, what did you do? What did you do that's your fault that you got abducted? And what did you do wrong? And you should take some responsibility. And now they run this weird circular logic process. And this is very condensed. This is a very condensed issue with their investigative process. But they do some really weird things, and they cannot think outside of an extremely small box, which is what I have a lot of problems with. A case that took 1.5 years, and they had lead none. I mean, other than finding blatantly labeled candies on a shelf and a videotape and the supposed fox-eyed man.
Well,
there wasn't anything they found.
Well, I mean,
because they didn't cast a net that we know of.
So actually, that's a very interesting thing that you would say. There actually are a couple theories from people around. Again, they're maybe not like the most substantiated theories, but they are very interesting.
I like the theories, but I want to put that out to people that I think that maybe they didn't really pursue this as a solid case because they didn't want to. They pursued it because they had to.
Yeah, but it's got a lot of publicity.
So it's not an easy to solve case. So crap, I got to work on this thing on Monday.
They didn't have anything to go on, really.
Right, truly, like the monster with 21 faces, for like how horrible they were. They knew how to work the police system. They knew that the police weren't going to investigate it if they weren't sending things to the media, if they weren't doing something super public.
And I think that's a good point. Is that they wouldn't do anything that they knew they couldn't work around. I mean, obviously they were playing for fools.
I mean, obviously
look at the typewriter I used. Woohoo!
And they were, they like, look at how dumb you are. Like, oh, we're bad men. Don't let us get away with it. Ha ha ha. Oh,
Mock.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they're-
absolutely.
But if they're so bad, so like here's a quote from their note. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. We are bad guys.
Yeah.
Why did they decide to forget about torturing food-making companies? Did they get paid off by every single one of them?
So actually, this is.
I think they did.
I think so.
There's a couple theories here.
All right, well, let's run
And
into
we'll
your
just jump
theories
into those.
my tirade is done.
Yeah, there aren't a whole lot of them. One of them is do you guys know
Shinrikyo?
Yeah.
Or Shinrikyo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know him?
I know who they are. Yes.
Yeah, so this
I
is
can't pronounce it, but I know who they are.
Yeah, a cult.
Mm-hmm.
Really, truly a cult that carried out what I think has been dubbed the most horrific attack in Japan since the World War II.
Since the A-bomb was dropped.
Bomb, yeah, basically. And it was the 1995 sarin gas attacks in
Which is
Japanese subway.
Friggin' terrible.
It was terrible. So sarin essentially kills you within 1 to 5 minutes of you.
Nasty stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
it just paralyzes your lungs.
Yeah, you
essentially.
suffocate.
Yeah. So what happened was it was these kind of like religious nuts who were part of this cult.
The fanatics.
Yeah, they were fanatics, and they tried to do this attack. It ended up being kind of botched, which was good. It ended up being much better than it could have been. I think
Smaller.
it only killed like 20 people, I think.
And it could have been a much
But
larger scale.
it seriously injured. It like temporarily blinded 100 people or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and like many people
why I
were
stay out of subways.
hospitalized. Yeah, so they just like put buckets of this stuff next to subways as they were going by. You know, they could have been really, really terrifying and gotten on subway cars and opened this stuff up, and they would have killed thousands of people probably.
In the sarin gas, that was in 95?
It was in 1995. So it turns out that this cult was founded in 1984, which is the same year that the Monster with 21 Faces attack started happening.
The cult is Shinrikyo, right? Okay.
And that's a whole different... If you're interested in that, Google it. It's a story in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. That's
Oh, yeah. It's a good one.
There's a lot of information.
there. But there is that theory circulating around. One of the other theories is that the Fox-Eyed Man was actually a famed Yakuza member named Manabu Miyazaki. His alibi is apparently checked out. It doesn't ever say what his alibis were. And I'm not sure that the police in that time period would necessarily like super pressure a member of the Yakuza.
Well, and again, do you remember my complaint about the Japanese police system? Is that the stories that I've read in that have been deep investigative stories is that I say, no, I was on holiday at this place, and they go, oh, okay, thank you very much. And they never double check.
Right.
They never double checked people's alibis. Just, oh no, I said I was here. Oh,
Yeah.
well, of course you wouldn't lie to the police.
Yeah, why would you?
Why would you lie to the police?
Yeah. So actually, I think the Yakuza theory is it's pretty popular, and I kind of like it.
I think extortion is kind of one of their specialties.
It is one of their
Yeah.
specialties. It could have been just like a small fringe group. And as it turns out, the attack stopped right when there was this huge mob war in Japan. In like the late 1985 kind of time period, there was this huge mob war that broke out. So, you know, ostensibly, if somebody were doing a side project of, hey, we're going to go attack all of these companies just for fun, you know, it kind of reads that whole like, we're bad men, ha ha ha, ha, taunting part of the Yakuza mob, that person could have been killed, or it could have, you know, just not been feasible to spend the time to do this side project of attacking the confectionery producer companies or whatever. So I kind of like that theory. I think it's quite interesting.
Well, and that actually lends to, I don't remember, I was listening to some story recently that was dealing with some of these guys in Japan in kind of that time frame who were trying to be basically bad bikers. And they were like, we're a bad biker gang. Yeah, we're going to do all this stuff. Except it was kind of this game of one-upmanship. how close could I get to the line before I walked away, before I actually crossed that line, and suddenly consequences go on, and I can't pull back from it. You know, I'm trying to be a bad guy, and I get to this point, and then this is getting a little too real. We put these poisons out, and they found them, and it's getting a little too creepy. Okay, we're gonna actually back off because I don't actually want to be an outlaw.
It might be that when somebody finally died, the policeman that committed suicide, that might have.
No.
This game is not what it was before.
Yeah.
It's no longer fun.
Now, let me ask you this: so they threatened in the original extortion attempt was with Glico, and they threatened to put cyanide-laced bags of candy on the supermarket shelves, and they pulled all those and they went through them. Did they find any that had been laced with poison?
Not as far as I know.
So the only one that got laced with poison was the second target.
As far as I know, and that could be
Morinaga.
false information.
Yeah.
But they said, yep, there's stuff on the shelves, so Glico pulled all that stuff, and then once they put all their product back on the shelves after they had gone through it or whatever, the threat came in. Oh, yeah, you're putting that back on the shelves. Great, because we actually have a bunch of that stuff that's been tampered with that we're just going to stick on the shelves too.
But they never.
But as far as I know,
it was never released that they found tampered.
That's as
from
far
the
as I
first
know.
batch.
But I mean, it's totally possible
It was
that
after
did.
they forgave Glico. Then that was when they found the stuff that had been laced with sodium cyanide, which was the Morinaga candy.
Yeah.
So So I mean, some of their notes. Let's see. One of these ones. You seem to be at a loss, so why not let us help you? We'll give you a clue. We entered the factory by the front gate. Does that mean, are they basically saying, "Hey, we work at the company.
Yeah,
we work there."
And maybe,
and they're
or I'm a
little
delivery
fun.
guy, or I'm a security guard,
yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell, right?
It's a million people that go in and out of the front gate of a factory every day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the only other little tidbit that I found kind of interesting was the statute of limitations on the kidnapping and the poisoning ran out in 2000. And actually, shortly after that, the Japanese media started saying, "Oh, it was North Korea."
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's not. What? I mean,
yeah, it
really?
was North Korea. Well, I mean, to be fair, North Korea is a place that, when found to be tunneling under a border with South Korea, they just went in and painted all the walls of their tunnels black, and they were like, no, it was coal. We were looking for coal. Look, see all that black stuff? It's coal.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm not going to say that this...
Because you don't know what coal is, but we know what coal is.
We know what coal is. It's black stuff on the wall. Yeah, so I'm not going to say, for 100% that this would be above the North Koreans, but I'm also not going to say... Yeah, it was definitely North Korea because that just seems silly, and they would have really nothing to gain from it.
Well, yeah, they would. They'd gain money. I mean,
potentially, but I'm
North Korea is short of funds.
If you're going to launch some kind of espionage, whether it be corporate or international, I mean, that just opens the gates right there.
For what?
For anybody. It could have been us. It could have been the U.S. government that was screwing with them. It could have been, the Soviets that were messing with them. It could have been, an Australian candy company who was trying to make it in.
I think competitors, that might be one thing. But I mean, if you're saying that it's in terms of countries, I mean, North Korea has North Korea is, no, it doesn't. I mean, North Korea is unique. They're especially loony and gangster-like. They are the kinds of guys who would do this. Australia would never do this. The government of Australia. It's possible. But this is almost like...
What about China? Would China not do this?
China doesn't need to do this. Korea is short on cash. They're perpetually short on cash.
Why wouldn't
they don't have an economy?
Why wouldn't any other country? Why wouldn't the British do this if they're trying to get in there to sell products there, or they have some loony sanction they're pushing for some reason? I mean, I'm just saying, if we're going to open up the fold to that, why focus just on Korea? Because it could be anybody. Because this is so goofy. This sounds like a black ops operation on mushrooms.
Well, no, I mean, essentially, the reason I don't think it's Korea is Korea they're uniquely gangsterish and irresponsible. What North Korea would have done if they'd been behind this is they wouldn't have set any notes. They would have poisoned candy, killed a bunch of kids, and then after that was all over the news, then they would have they said, "Hey, it's us, North Korea. We did it." And if you don't want it to happen again, you're just going to send us suitcases full of gold and cash because we like that. That's essentially what they do now.
I'm sorry. I just love that whole, like, the idea of, like, hey, it's us, North Korea. Yep, we killed a bunch of kids.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, no, that's the kind of stuff that they do. Those guys are psychos.
The industrious leader said to do this, or whatever they call him.
Yeah, the
but,
glorious leader.
I mean, we're way off track here.
We're being super offensive at this point.
No.
Well, no, it's not super offensive, but I'm just saying
It's not super offensive because they don't get our podcast.
If we're going to open up the door to espionage of any kind,
well, this isn't espionage. This is just blackmail.
Well, corporate espionage or blackmail, then that opens the door to anybody because nobody stood out as a suspect, which means everybody could be guilty.
I think we generally assume that, like, corporations, as corrupt as they are not psycho enough.
As can be. I wouldn't say corporations are, but they can.
Yeah, they're not.
But they're not psycho enough to either actually poison a bunch of candy or even, like, say they're going to poison a bunch of candy. I mean, just like the tub of hydrochloric acid itself speaks of something actually psycho. Like, that's a pretty psycho thing
nutty.
to do. So there aren't good answers. But so to this day, nobody knows
who did it.
The monster with 21 faces is.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The cryptic notes, you know.
The monster with 21 faces of Matt Damon.
Yeah, or the Phantom with 21 faces.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a Wilfred reference.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Definitely.
Okay.
So, do
see
you guys
that
have
episode.
a favorite theory on this one? Not that there are really theories.
Yeah, I think that Joe and I both argued, some of the basic theories. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that it's the guys who did the sarin gas. That doesn't seem like their can of worms because they seemed pretty fanatical.
Yeah, they probably would have just poisoned a bunch of kids.
Although it was, would have been 11 years before, right? It would have been the very.
So that was their. Well, but you would think that groups and people who do that kind of behavior, they have a cyclical buildup. So I do one small thing to another bigger thing to another bigger thing. But you would think that we would heard of all these things, whereas that group, the sarin gas was just like, they just dropped that bomb. No pun intended. They didn't work up to it. And you would think that in that 11-year period between the two, they would have done something else.
Yeah, I don't think it was them. There's no reason.
No, I don't think it was them. But I don't know who did it.
But, well, I think that what would be interesting to find out is how many other companies got blackmailed by this whole thing.
But we'll never find that out.
I think it was probably, as far as I can tell, it was 3 or 4.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, could have been a whole lot more than that.
It could have been way more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it could have been lots more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll never know. I don't think it was the Norks, but I wouldn't put it past them. They're disgusting little gangsters, and yeah, sure. But
Joe loves North Korea.
Yeah.
So I guess.
But I'm gonna go with. Let me think. Yeah, the Foxside Man. Yeah, there you go. That's him. He was.
I say it was the videotape man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you guys say that in your anime?
How do you know
voices?
they're not the same person?
They might. Well, that's.
Say it in the what?
Your anime voices.
Well, I don't have an anime voice.
Yu-Gi-Oh! It was the Foxside man.
Ha ha! It was clearly the Foxside Man.
Oh, okay.
Ha ha!
Aha.
No.
Wow.
Okay, that was good.
Can we stop now before we just make bigger fools of ourselves?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Thank
So,
We're obviously all
Sorry.
rummy here.
Yeah. So we didn't solve this one, although we're still suspicious about North Korea.
Joe is at least.
Yeah.
So all of the links for this are, of course, on our website, which you may be listening to us on. That website is, as always, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You may also be listening to us on iTunes. I don't know. I'm not the boss of tracking these sort of things. We have
a
people
boss?
for that. Well, no, we have people for that.
Oh.
So if you are listening to us on iTunes, please leave us a comment and a rating. We like hearing from you guys. Find us on Facebook. We have the group and the fan page.
Yes.
So you can like us and friend us. Tell us lots of stuff.
We're very friendly.
We're pretty good at sharing stuff. I forgot to say, you can always stream us on Stitcher. If it's Thursday and you realized a show came out and you didn't download us, just stream us right from Stitcher. Also, you can send us an email if you are the monster with 21 faces or know who that person is. or those people. I don't know. Or if you just have a question. We've been getting lots of awesome, interesting questions, discussions coming
Philosophical.
through. Yeah, I had a very interesting conversation with a listener recently about aliens. If they exist, where are they? Why haven't we found them? Doesn't matter. Anyways, so that email address is, as always, thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. So that's it. I guess we're gonna monster mash on out of here.
So if you're a Yakuza, please don't kill us. And if you're the monster, of course, we want to hear from you. Yeah, that's about it.
I really want some Pocky now.
Yeah, it's good, huh? We just gotta hope that we don't get any of the potassium cyanide stuff.
No, actually, it's chalky and gross, but let's have some anyway.
Yeah, I do want some candy.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Okay, toodaloo, everybody.